Welcome back, everyone. In this episode, I want to talk about a question I've been receiving lately in my Intro to Spring Boot course. The question is this: when I start a new Spring Boot project and I include the web dependency, the default servlet container is Tomcat. If I wanted to change it to something like Jetty, could I do so? The answer is yes. The great thing about Spring Boot is that it gives us some sensible defaults, but does not stand in our way if we need to change something. So all we need to do to get this done is actually exclude Tomcat from the web dependency and then include our dependency for another servlet container like Jetty. It's really easy to do, and I'm going to show you right now how to do it. Let's jump on in. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is actually start up IntelliJ here and create a new project. From the Spring Initializer, I'm just going to leave the defaults here and click Next. And let's go ahead and put in a name. We'll say Jetty Demo. We'll use Maven. We'll use Java 1.8. And the rest looks about good. So we're going to click Next. Here what we're going to do is we're only going to select Web. So when I select Web, I'm getting that basically full Spring MVC with the Tomcat as the default servlet container. So let's go ahead and choose that. We're going to click Next. Jetty Demo, boot Jetty Demo. Yep, everything looks good. Let's go ahead and click Finish and start up our project in IntelliJ. So the first thing that I want to do is actually look at our Maven Pom file here. And if we go ahead and take a look, and let's jump in here real quick. So the only thing that we have as far as the dependency goes is the Spring Boot starter web. So once this fires up here, I'm going to go ahead and open this. And in the Spring Boot starter web, we get a bunch of dependencies that are included for us. We get things like validation, data binding, we get Spring Web, and then Spring MVC. And one of the other items that are in there is the Spring Boot starter Tomcat. And so this gives us Tomcat as the default embedded container out of the box. And this is nice because most of the time this works for us. We don't have to go ahead and set this up on every project that we fire up. But at times like this, we need to exclude it and use something else like Jetty. So this is actually really easy to do. We're just going to come into our dependency block here. And I'm going to go ahead and add an exclusions block. And inside that exclusion block, I'm going to add a new exclusion. And inside of the exclusion, I'm going to have a group ID. And we'll call that org.springframework.boot. And then we're going to have an artifact ID, and we're going to call that Spring Boot Starter Tomcat. Well, that was the name, if you remember, when we were looking in there. So now we have an exclusion for that. So it's going to still include everything else in the Spring Boot starter web, but exclude that one particular starter that we don't want to bring in. So now that we have that excluded, it's time to add our new dependency. So we'll come in here and add a new dependency, and this is going to be boot. And the artifact ID for this is there's a Spring Boot starter Jetty. Jetty. Right? Spring Boot starter Jetty. Yep. So we're going to go ahead and save that, and that's going to bring the starter Jetty in for us. So now we've excluded Tomcat, we've brought in Jetty, everything looks like it should be good, and let's go ahead and wait for this to fire up, make sure we have no errors here. And now what we're going to do is just go into our main application file, and I want to go ahead and run this. So let's run Jetty Demo. And what we're looking for here is it'll actually give us some information about the application as it's starting up. And if you notice right here, we see that we have the server initialized with port 8080 and that we're using Jetty. So that tells me Jetty was started on port 8080. So that tells me that we don't have anything conflicting. We were able to pull Tomcat out and include Jetty. So this should work just about any other container that you want to use. There may not be helpful starters for it, but you should be able to include the dependencies that you need and get that running for you. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, please let me know. Go ahead and hit that like button, and please subscribe to this channel, and let me know if you have any other questions Spring Boot related. I love getting questions, and gives me something to answer. So thanks, and have a good one.